All right. So welcome folks to 2024. This is the Cross Purpose Report. So we thought we'd start this year off, not so much with our regular podcast, but by doing the TCP report. We did one report last year. And so I thought, okay, let's start with the report. So this is 2024. This is the Cross Purpose ushering into season 4. And this is how we begin. So welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us. So the TCP report is a place where we specifically take news items, stuff happening in our culture, and we talk about it, things most relevant, things happening right now. And I think we've discussed to and fro trying to figure out whether it should be a regular thing or should it be a response to when things speak in the world. Yeah, events speak in the world. And I think we are at a place where events speak every now and then.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it might just be one news item that we want to talk about, or maybe a couple. So setting it apart from regular podcast is we're not necessarily taking a subject and talking about it, but going through a multiple number of subjects. And so let me just take us through what we have for us today. So joining me today is both Benji and Ashok. Steve's behind the camera.
Still enabled bachelor.
Yeah, he's still a highly eligible bachelor.
Eligible, that's what I mean.
That's not enabled. It's like a software engineer. He is a software engineer. So let me take us through different topics I think we can talk about today. Number 1, 2024. It's a new year. Many people are wondering what 2024 looks like. I think ever since 2020, people don't take the new year for granted. You don't know what's around the corner. And so people are apprehensive, not sure. And so going into 2024...
They don't take it for granted and they don't have high hopes either.
Yeah. So I guess...
They're not even going to gyms even on the 1st of January. So
New Year resolutions have taken a hit.
Yeah.
Maybe that can be the first topic. How to bring back New Year resolutions. Go read Jonathan Edwards' resolutions.
Is that how to bring back
or to get more disappointed?
Yeah.
So anyway, so people go into the new year apprehensive, wondering how they should face the new year, what they should look at. As a church, we went through a series of sermons on joy and talking about serious joy, and we went into the new year talking about Christ is Lord. And so maybe we can hash out some of those things as being how are we prioritizing going into the new year. And then the rest of the news items, one of the things that I wanted to mention is the earthquake in Japan. Over 200 people. I don't know the count right now, but they have this every year, every other year, and it's sad to see that happen. Other stuff is I want to talk about the sin of Nuance from a tweet that caught my attention by Joe Rigney. That'll be a fascinating thing, I think, to talk about. I want to talk about the sanctity of marriage, because there's a lot of news items that were popping in my radar about murder and mayhem within families. And that's maybe we should retitle that to Murder and Mayhem.
Should have a new
Murder,
podcast.
Mayhem and Marriage. MMM.
That's our next podcast.
Yep. I think we have witnessed a historic moment.
And the next news item will be, I want to talk about the Kadhal movie that just came out, starring Mammootty and Jyotika. And that's, I think, a good thing to talk about, and how Christians should respond to what's happening. And then also maybe at the end of it, we can talk about should Christians boycott Maldives. So that's a bulk of items. But yeah, so I guess we can start with that. So let's begin with the new year, 2024. How's 2024 looking like for you guys? What are you feeling? Are you feeling anything? It's kind of strange when you do a podcast at the end of 2023 and then you do a podcast at the beginning of 2024. It's like you just walked in from one room to the other.
Yeah. Honestly, not feeling anything much.
Yeah.
Probably because it's my son's first birthday in a couple of days. So these things don't matter.
Yeah. There's
It's more
plenty enough.
worrisome. It's your son's birthday and these things don't.
This like a TCP report. I can do it any day.
Yeah. So Benji's son's birthday is coming. It's around the corner. So praise the Lord. 1 year of God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Yes. Did you think he'd grow this much this fast? Or did you think it was going to be more slow paced?
I think I knew he was going to. I was hoping he would grow. we're feeding him.
Your son would grow.
No, that's not my question. Yeah. No, you'll know. Okay. I kind of.
Now I'm scared for Ethan.
I kind of want Ethan to grow up to be a man and want him to serve the Lord, but I would like him to take his time.
Yeah.
So 2 years in, he seems very fast in terms of stuff he's picking up, and so we've been advised, and we believe from these, we agree with people who have advised us that the first 5 years are very crucial to disciplining a child. You do well for the first 5 years, then it's a good platform from which they'll grow. And we're too down, and we feel like we've not done a good job. So like 3 more years. This year is gonna be better.
Packing those 2 years of discipline also in these things.
Yeah. So that's happening. So yeah. Sorry.
Years from now, Ethan would know. You would have something to look back to. So this is what happened in those 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I personally feel like a lot is going to happen this year. I feel like last year was sort of preparation,
Right.
orientation. I think something is going to I don't know what it is, but I feel like a lot of things are set up to happen.
Yeah.
So with the publishing and the books and all the different things, I think a lot of stuff is going to happen, and I'm prepared for it. So that's how I feel. I feel like geared up for action.
Right. Great. What about you?
I'm a big skeptic. Skeptic. Huh?
Yeah, he's.
Yeah, but in Lord's
Is there
view,
such a thing as a pessimistic postman?
the Puritan despair.
We got a new book title.
Festival.
Yeah, but stop. All right. So so more along the lines of, did it come?
Caution.
Like Tetra books or Paul Tripp books.
Yeah.
So be careful. It's all about being careful and
Right.
letting the things come. But yeah,
I think it's because his name is Trip.
I'm gonna tag Trip and tell him that.
Okay. So so as God brings things in life.
How much has the sermon on serious joy affected that?
No, I don't think so. It was not a new theological. This has opened my eyes, kind of a thing. But then, I mean, it did, but in the sense that just that the inevitable nature, the fact that joy is everywhere in the scripture, and there is no escaping it. It's coming for you, kind of a thing, right? So that's the kind of realization perhaps I had through the sermon series. It's one thing to be like, you can be listening to John Piper and him talk about Jonathan Edwards for so long about joy, and then it's different when scripture convicts you, the same things.
Yeah.
So that was that for me. But then it's always been there. I've always naturally that person who's a big skeptic about things. I'm more worried about things going wrong.
Yeah.
So a bit on the back foot with a bunch of things like that.
Right. Yeah, on my end, I think for me, the thing that stands out, I think that my focus somehow is wanting to hit stability. Because we've got a lot of things happening, not just at the church front, but the work front, family front. And so just really looking like what will the balance of it all look like. And so I think everything that I'm trying to do at the beginning of the year itself is trying to move to a place where there's a routine. So I'm not a particularly routine person, but routine has become necessary. So one baby and one young boy and two boys, and routine becomes huge for us. So babies have a sleep time, they have all of that, and so we work around that schedule, and
It becomes necessary not to go insane.
yeah, it is. And so just working through all of that. So I'm hoping that this year, I agree with you guys, I do have a sense that a lot is going to happen. And I do have a sense that there's a lot of preparation and prayer needed to face what's going to happen. A lot of good things, a lot of challenges. It's always that way. And so hoping for the best for 2024. But I think at the end of the day, like the sermon I preached at the beginning of the year is really my mindset, which is I have learned, and we all have learned, that Christ is Lord. He is sovereign. That every year holds surprises for the world, but nothing surprises Him. He knows what's coming. He has us prepared to face what's coming. And so we're in good hands. And so that's the trust. So when people look to any new year, I think they should set their eyes on Christ, know that He is sovereign, and that whatever comes to pass, His sovereign will has ordained it to happen, which frees us then to joyfully and prayerfully pursue all that we must and should, and pray that God blesses the work of our hands. So, cool. So that's what we're looking for in 2024. So let's pray that God uses TCP and Redemption Hill Church and everything we do. So let's get into our news items, starting with the sin of nuance. So
I want clarity there. When you say the sin of nuance, what do you mean?
you should ask Joe Rigney.
Yeah, I don't think he said
You want me to nuance it for you?
Yeah, could you please nuance it for me?
Okay, so I take it to the news item. So basically, Joe Rigney had pointed to an article by Christianity Today. It was an article by, I think, Cara Betis Carvalho, titled "Should I Offer My Pronouns?" All right, and basically, Rigney writes, "There's a sin of empathy meets the sin of nuance." Sin of empathy has gotten Joe into a lot of problems, but we love what he says with it, and I think it's brilliant, and I think it's very helpful.
Indeed.
And the sin of nuance essentially is, he is basically talking about how Christian leaders have approached the subject of the use of pronouns, which is a growing and big thing, especially in America, and it's getting here, where there is a complete detachment between gender and sex. Gender is seen particularly as a social construct, and therefore you can have any number of genders. People can choose the gender that they want, and if they claim to be of a particular gender, they have a preferred pronoun by which they should be addressed, and if they are not addressed by that preferred pronoun, it's an offense.
They're triggered.
Yeah. And that's what made people like Jordan Peterson come up prominent onto the scene, where he said that if you force me to use your pronouns, then you're infringing upon my freedom of speech.
At that point, the insanity had got to the point that the government is trying to
and the government
impose it upon
succeeded.
people.
The Canadian government succeeded in pushing that bill through, into getting it to a place where you are supposed to use preferred pronouns, which is sad. So that's the whole debate, and the question is, what should Christians do? How should Christians respond to it? And so that's pretty much what he was trying to address with that particular talking about the sin of nuance, because at the tail end of that article in Christianity Today, it was very interesting for me how prominent Christian leaders were trying to say that we've got to think about this. We've got to be careful with how we address this. We need to go into this conversation with a lot of grace. That's the kind of So, which is what Rigney was pointing to by saying that the sin of nuance is making simple things complicated and complex things simple. It muddles the conversation. And you're trying to nuance your way out of it to somehow be politically right, to somehow, and not address it head on. Because addressing it head on will not make you popular. And so that's pretty much what he was trying to address. But it's interesting when you read that article. It's a long article. But at the tail end of it, it's like, go into it with grace. Go into it with patience. Go into it. And just, what do you guys think about it?
So I think the whole idea I'm sorry, Vinci, I cut you. So the idea that is being they're trying to present here is that we need to put much more thought into this.
Yeah.
So there is an inherent simplicity in this which is removed, and so which is very much what the serpent does in the garden. There is a simplicity in do not eat of this fruit, but then the muddled. He muddles it by saying, but did God really say that? Did God really say that? And he casts the seed of confusion, and then from there, you have the foundations for the clown world. So even in this situation, the clown world, where there are actually people wearing suits and respectable dresses and going around calling people Z and Zen, it's insane. And insanity has to be pointed out as it is. It's insane. It's a clown world. So yeah. So in such a situation, bringing in nuance is it's evil. It's just it's deception. It's all sorts of bad things.
Yeah. In fact, some of the reasonings that they come into that has to do with how they're talking about how Christians must speak truth in love, that they must be kind, that they must be gracious, that they're not to, it's the concept of a culture warrior. We go in and you're going in for war, you're fighting the culture, versus you are standing for Christ, but you're trying to be an ambassador. And ambassadors are diplomatic in that sense, and you're not trying to hurt your neighbor, you're trying to love your neighbor. So how do you go into this? So the language of Christian leaders is, we must be prayer soaked, discerning, careful, and we must prioritize relationships over winning an argument. That's the kind of tone that's going into this kind of things.
See, that's where you need nuance. All those sentences that you said are actually true.
Yeah.
Right? Given the right context.
Yeah, it's things we have said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would
Probably in the previous podcast.
So Sam Albury said that the issue is a wisdom matter, not a righteousness matter.
It's a very unwise statement.
Yeah.
And unrighteous.
Yes.
That's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting because he says we should allow each other enough grace where we might not agree, but understand why we did it and understand what motives are honorable. So it's trying to go at the heart of it, trying to understand the heart of it, and which is probably why he talks about the sin of empathy meets the sin of nuance.
Yeah.
Because all this is an attempt at empathizing, which leads you to want to construct a way of approach that's just, yeah.
So the whole agenda here is to change the dictionary, to change the meaning of the words.
Yeah.
And it's all this postmodern approach of, taking the core, the life out of the words, and they are just left with this. The words are just shells; they don't mean anything anymore, kind of a thing. And in this, this left wing, they have this war against words and dictionary, and then when we Christians go into that place saying empathy, I think you completely lose the idea of the scene here, what exactly is happening, and you just play into it. So this is fight after fight. We are going to show empathy. Finally, there will be nothing worth fighting for at some point. It's completely missing the truth of the situation, discerning what is happening or the spirit of the times. And Jesus is angry at the Pharisees for not discerning the spirit of the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the monitor. I think you should be a little louder.
Oh, I should be.
Yeah. So yeah, and the whole, and so I was started writing a Brook Kidron episode on this. And as I was writing it out and I was just tracing up some of this history, it's very interesting how you can find a lot of these things rooted in the feminist movement, and how this whole gender debates begin. It's very interesting because when God created them male and female, and he created them with a nature that is different, but they were of same value in his eyes, but two different natures, two different functions, two different beings that were going to be fundamentally different in the way they interacted, in the way they saw life. And the way the devil is able to deceive the woman and not the man is one of the arguments Paul uses for leadership in the church. And so it's very interesting how if the root of civilization is a man and a woman, and that's God's design, and the root of a civilization is their union, which produces children, and the first commission is to go and be fruitful and multiply. That's where the devil attacks. That's the one thing that is attacked the most, that is hated the most. And the moment it's a fight between gender gaps, right? And not understanding what the purpose is, what's the fine line. Because there is unrighteous inequality and righteous inequality. So God creating them unequal in the sense not of dignity or worth, but of function and nature is a righteous inequality. But an unrighteous inequality would be oppressing the other with unrighteousness for unrighteous needs. So we have to fight unrighteous inequality at all fronts. But that filter is not there for the secular world. So they're fighting against all inequality. And so when the push of that comes more and more, it has created a cascading effect where people have distanced gender from function and role and purpose. And so the more it got pushed away, it became less important, and made into a social construct that started growing rapidly into the place that it is. And so I was able, as I was writing down Brook Kidron, when I put that out, I think I want to draw that out, which is what people like James White and Doug Wilson have been talking about, is how even the guys at G3 have been talking about. It's like a train where this is the first sin, that if we cave to, the bogies are just being dragged behind it. And one after another, you'll just have these things come right into the...
So you keep pushing the gender so much. So there's two ways Satan attacks. Satan hates that that we would be fruitful and we multiply. Right? There's the procreation and all of it happening. And the two ways that he would attack it would be, one, that he removes gender away from people. So what happens is they do not have children anymore. Right? It's not men or women. It's non-binary. It is just a flesh and ideology, nothing else. And on the other hand, abortion. The children who are born, kill them. So on two ends, it is a war on procreation. It's a war on the earth being full, or multiplication and fruitfulness upon the earth.
Yeah. Your thoughts, Benji? Anything you want to add to this?
Not really. I think you got one of the points which I wanted to say, which is basically the secular world doesn't have that filter, right? So it's like we are the filter of what is righteous and what is unrighteous. So we are the ones, I see us as sort of spokespersons for the truth, right? Because people are generally confused, and we find it in all settings. People are generally confused, and generally confused people when they're trying to argue their points will argue with nuances like this, right? And we tend to take a position of trying to boil it down, and I do this at office all the time, trying to boil it down and come down to the root of it, right? And in tech it works, like in programming or something, you're able to take it down and it makes sense. In mathematics or in any of those sciences, real sciences, you're able to take it down and you're able to state a fact and people can agree on. But if you break down these points and bring it down to a summary, right? So this is what you're saying. You're saying this, and you say it in one statement, right? The statement itself might sound harsh or bad or evil. Upsetting to the person who's. That's not what I'm saying. So the immediate response is no, but there's more to that. It's not just that. And they bring in the nuances and try to arrive at the emotional state that they were in when they came up with that thought. They are not in the process of trying to summarize and make it fit a worldview, right? So I think that's where sort of we come in and have to stand for what we understand is true, which is, I think, the difference here. Some things need nuance, some things should not.
It's interesting Benji points that out. So what we are trying to do in conversations such as that is asking them not to feel but to think. Whereas what Sam Albury is saying and this article is saying, no, let's not bring the propositional truth. Let's not bring truth here. Let's not bring that cut right logic into this, but let's feel what they're feeling.
Which
and
is
the
the sin of
nuances are being
empathy.
imported instead of our truth being exported.
Which is the sin of empathy.
And
And it's and also it's like when you go to the paint shop and you have that color palette that they show the different colors. It's like gender has become that. It's like there's an ever-growing palette of different shades that you can pick whichever gender you want, and it's just absurd. And I was just looking at my notes. I found so basically what happened in the 1960s and 70s is that with the growing feminist movement, they attacked gender stereotypes. So what they tried to do was remove gender-specific pronouns and bring in gender-neutral job titles where you use
became chairperson.
Chairperson instead of chairman or chairwoman. Right? So you're making it gender neutral. So you're trying to neutralize, bridge the gap. And what we are facing today...
I remember thinking that it was very helpful because you don't have to remember chairman, chairwoman, actor, actress. You just say actor.
It's the same. But this is where we've ended up, right? In this disastrous place. And so... the Bible teaches us that God created human beings, male and female. And so there are two genders. They are attached to biological sex. That's the nature, the function for which God has made them. And so we build civilizations around this truth because we trust God. We trust in God's word. So if people ask you, how can you say this? Because the Bible tells me so. That's our foundation. That's where we stand. And that's from where we do all that we do. So Christians can boldly be able to address these issues. And it's interesting that the Bible says speak the truth in love and not speak the truth softly. Somehow people take speak the truth in love means softly. But love goes out into the battlefield and kills for the sake of those whom they love. Love does acts of courage and bravery that are sometimes violent, that are sometimes forceful, that are sometimes strong and heavy and masculine. And if you have to speak the truth in love, then it is the love that is courageous enough to tell the truth, even if it might hurt people, because it might help them. Alright, so taking that into, since we're talking about male and female and we're talking about this marriage, let's go into the sanctity of marriage. There's a bunch of news items of things happening recently. It's kind of shocking.
Kind of shocking. I can't.
It's more than shocking. So it's we have a CEO in Bangalore that's been arrested for allegedly killing her 4-year-old son. because she was upset about the divorce case that was the custody battle that was going on. And so she tried to cover it up and was caught. Before I was a parent, this was horrible news. After I've become a parent, this is like you don't know how to settle it. Because this is evil. And it's horrible. And so, as I was following this news story, it was interesting to me. It's just the beginning of 2024. How many murder and mayhem has happened that's been just coming out again and again in the news repeatedly, and it's shocking. Killing the spouse for not taking them to Singapore was the news.
Singapore.
Were you following the recent news of not news actually, the Netflix documentary on Jolly,
No.
who killed 4 or 5 people across 14 years with cyanide?
Oh, yeah.
Insane.
Not Netflix. I mean, I heard about it.
Yeah. Made a documentary out of the whole thing, but yeah, all these insane news.
Yeah.
I was saying that we went to Singapore without our wives.
And they were gracious enough.
The first time. Okay.
Is it the first? It's first time.
Yeah, you can take me through the story, Benji. This thing is not loading.
None of us is loading, I think.
No, it's not like I got it.
So there was one on the Singapore thing. There was another on the wife killing the husband for not allowing her to make Instagram reels anymore.
There is definitely that. And there's another one where wife stabs husband over sex change.
Yeah.
I didn't even understand that one.
Yeah.
He underwent a sex change
The
operation.
Story, yeah. So the problem in the story is the pronouns.
Is pronouns.
See, underwent a sex change. So then, did they change using the pronouns or not? This is what I want to know.
Yeah, they are not very woke, is what I understand. I remember reading this.
So so following the news, it was just horrible crimes committed inside homes, committed between spouses, against children, and it's all a scene that's horrible. It's all a scene that the devil loves. And I think Christians, when they hear these kind of stories, it should horrify them, but at the same time it should inform them that this is the fight that they fight. This is the enemy that they fight. That he is in its most extreme sense out to devour families, out to devour children. And we as Christian parents and Christian spouses ought to be working hard to build a covenant household. So it's just, following this news has been horrible. So I was going back to Ephesians 5 and I was just thinking that just faithfully applying the principles of Ephesians 5 and understanding that if a husband is in his daily life bothered about loving his wife like Christ loved the church, and the wife was day on day bothered and intentionally following to submit to her husband like the church submits to Christ, how important that is to solidify and strengthen a marriage. And in the day and age we live in, marriages fall apart left, right and center. And it's sad to see. And I think the sanctity of marriage is what, starting from the first one with the feminist movement, with the pronoun battles, with all that's happening, one way or another, it's an attack on the institution of marriage.
It is. Yeah, like we got to procreation. Malachi 2, Malachi 3 talks about marriage, where he says that I instituted marriage, I gave you in marriage so that you might have children. And also one of the primary reasons that we see in Genesis that God instituted, the institution of marriage is so that they would be fruitful and multiply. So all of this is multiple different angles of attacking the same things, right? Don't let men and women procreate. Don't let them be men and women anymore. Don't let them get married. Take the meaning out of marriage. Do not let the children grow up, even, or do not let the children come out of the womb. At every stage there is blockers. At every stage there is blockers. So yeah, the whole sanctity of marriage, I think, is just yet another aspect that is being attacked in the same way. So it becomes, I think we should move on to the next topic also, which is very much in line with this, that the way that you remove the sanctity from the marriage is that there is nothing magical about it. There is nothing spiritual about it. That you completely remove anything in it apart from the mere physiology or the mental state, just the feelings, right? So marriage becomes merely a contract. Marriage becomes merely convenience, and the second the convenience goes away, then there is nothing holding it together anymore. So that's the sanctity part, that extra magic that comes in, or the whatever. So
It's more than convenience. It's more like I get some benefit out of it, you get some benefit out of it. While that's there, it's good, right? That's the picture.
Friends with benefits.
Yeah, which is what people are doing now. I think from what I understand.
Yeah,
because
contractual
they cut out
benefits.
Yeah.
cut out the you cut out the
Contract
marriage thing
also.
completely.
Yeah.
There are places where it's okay.
Yeah. In fact, as we're talking about, I'm thinking all of this, one way or another, like you were saying, is meant to confuse the meaning of marriage, what it stands for, why it exists, why God made this institution exist. Because as long as you can confuse that, either it will not happen or it will be broken. In Ephesians 5, God makes this institution, out of all the institutions in the world, the marriage as the covenant unity that represents or symbolizes unity between Christ and the church. And that's a unity the enemy hates. And so if he can mar that symbol and destroy that symbol, it is a way of marring what it represents. And so marriage comes under attack all the way. And
Is Simon Sinek a Christian or a believer or anything like that? Any proximity to it?
I have no idea, but the more I listen to him, I feel about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, because I was listening to something today and he was talking about this exact thing. He was talking, but he uses Mother Nature instead of God. But
that didn't give away Benji.
something there. But
next topic, Benji.
but no, he was talking about this. He was talking about marriage, and he was talking about procreation, and he's telling how nature has given this instincts, and he's basically preaching against the misuse of it or the incorrect application of it, and he's talking about some other larger theme, but I think it's I was listening to marketing or business or something like that, leadership in business and marketing and all that, but somehow this is what he was talking about, but the same topic, which is that there is a way that it's supposed to be, and it's like nature has given the attraction between man and woman, or sexual intimacy feels good, right? And he's just stating that as a fact, and he's saying this is because nature wants you to have kids. Like he's saying it like that, which I thought was interesting. But basically the same thing that you're trying to say, but we have the filter of, we know who did it, we know why it's there.
Yeah. And and as long as marriage is attacked, and I think that everything, it all fundamentally boils down to that. Everything that we're talking about, the attack is going there.
Yeah. And
who is the one that you said broke up the marriage because they could not be free, open?
Oh, that's this director Joe Baby.
Oh, him itself. Okay.
Yeah, him.
Yeah, that takes us to that. Let's go into that then. Jumping right in from that discussion to the latest Kadal movie that came out. I rushed through the movie, not knowing what it was about. But it's a movie starring both Mammootty, Jyotirga, and it's basically about a man who is secretly gay and he's trying to get into the elections scene and all that, and his wife files for a divorce because she wants to get out of this marriage because he's not intimate with her, and the story revolves around that and all the happenings and all the confusions, all the drama surrounding that scenario, which strikes a chord with today's culture, with a lot of families who have those issues. And the movie essentially ends with them coming to a conclusion that the loving thing to do is to dissolve their marriage. Because if they care for each other, then she needs to have a life and he needs to have a life. And so they dissolve the marriage, and he helps her find another man or pursue another marriage, while he comes out into the open as being someone who is gay. That's the moral of the story, and trying to talk about what that looks like in the world we live in.
So it's a happy ending.
Interestingly, the music is very sad at the end of it. At the end of a cordial this thing, it seems like a very, I don't know if it's because I was Christian.
No, I think they've taken meaning out of things so much that they might have taken it out of music also. So you no longer know what is good music or what is sad music or happy music.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. But
why does a minor chord have to be sad?
Pardon?
Why does a minor chord have to be sad?
Yeah. And so the movie's been widely accepted, but it's got its own critiques. The one story that I really liked was how the director, Joe Baby, was invited by a college to take a talk, and they pulled off last minute and told him, we can't have you because your what do they say?
Statements.
Yeah, your statements do not align with our core values. And so they wouldn't have him. And I believe he's filing a case against the college for cancelling last minute without any prior notice. But the director is known to have said that marriage is a vicious system. See again what's being attacked. Marriage is a vicious system. That he is against the concept of only one partner for a person, and that he is happy if 10 divorces happen after watching this film.
It's activism.
Yeah.
Right? It's not hidden, it's nothing, it's just activism.
Right.
And it's demonic.
Yeah.
What else has to be said about it?
Christians should probably go to Maldives and boycott this film.
All right.
Oh, we've not gotten to the next topic. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
On their honeymoon.
Yes.
But it is.
Christians should get married and go to Maldives honeymoon.
In protest. Now it makes sense.
Protestants. No, that's not what makes sense. Okay.
So this whole movie, and so in fact the college resisted it. The whole thing is there are many people saying that the movies create to brainwash the youth. Again, I hate the brainwash language. Like brainwash really is no longer brainwash. Like the actual word has no more real meaning anymore. I think that the freedom of the arts allows a person to make a movie like this. And it allows for us to get up and say why it's stupid.
Yeah.
Why it's dumb, why it's not Christian, why it doesn't align with reality, why it spurs people emotionally to continue down that road of destruction, where they end up at a place where they really see marriage as a vicious system. And it's not a vicious system. It is the way God intended to create the world. So, yeah.
I mean, the freedom of the art, I don't know about that part. If I was the king, it's not coming out.
Sure. I'm not talking about an ideal situation. I'm talking about today.
When I am the king, wow.
I'm talking about today. I'm not saying that the ideal system is you being king.
Not that either.
Yeah. We'll maybe talk about Christian nationalism later. But the point being that that's the nature of the arts today. That's the freedom of the arts. But I think Christians should rise up and understand that the moral matters to stories that come out. And much of the movies coming out these days have an agenda. They're trying to communicate and teach and train an agenda. And that's always been the case, I guess, one way or another. Because it's never been pure entertainment. There's always been morals that have been going out in whatever you create. There's always teaching happening.
Yeah.
But when it comes from a stable worldview or a worldview that is most Christian, because you can have non-Christian worldviews a lot here and there, but by and large, when the Christian influence exists, when the truth exists, let's call it truth for that sense, if it's based on truth, then much of your stories will teach truth, will impart truth.
I think even as you're teaching about serious joy and all that, God has made us for joy. So entertainment provides joy, and our telos, our purpose is joy. So if our mission has an end goal of joy always. So this is kind of, our catechism is also like that, right? How do we catechize people? We teach them truth, and it's a pursuit of joy in that sense. So the way entertainment would work is it gives the joy first, and then the catechism happens behind it.
Yeah.
So no joy is standalone.
Yeah.
No entertainment is a standalone. There is nothing that just provides joy. It was always coupled with something, and that's how God has created everything. And like an atheistic reductionist, we don't see, okay, joy is a thing that floats in the air without any strings attached to it, but it's very much attached to the way we are made, our body, our mind, everything is very much tied to it. So yeah.
And so what about Christians who will say it's just a movie?
Yeah, that's the danger. So we don't want to be calling everything an attack and crying wolf all the time, but we want to still identify, because there are cases where people are very clearly attacking. You don't want to close your eyes when that's happening.
Yeah,
that's the point. So in this case, there are too many signs. I don't have to call it signs. He's outright saying it, right? And he's attacking. That's where you want to stand firm, right?
Yeah.
Call an attack, right? And see that it is not biblical. It's not right. It's not. And too many people are falling into that trap of saying it's just a movie. It's all right. Doesn't hurt anyone or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think
they're just wrong. It hurts because it teaches, it trains.
This is a dichotomy, and not dichotomy, well, two extremes that we should always be careful of. One is the carefulness culture, right? You're careful about everything. What if you sing a song about Hillsong and one of the church members listens to it, goes home and types the lyrics and finds out Hillsong, and because you sang it, they think it's a very good band, and then follow them for the teachings and become indoctrinated. That kind of a thought process. And on the other hand, you have looking at the world and thinking that these are separate from God's world. That's just like I was saying earlier, it's just entertainment, it's nothing else. There is no such thing, and it is pure atheistic materialism, where everything is just material, it's just things, it is just bread, it is just wine. But Christ would say, this bread is my body and this wine is my blood. So there is some magic to all of it, how God has created everything. Like C.S. Lewis would say that the stars are angels, right? And what is gravity? Well, you say that it's just force pulling things down. So why can't it be angels pulling things down?
Mm.
Who's to say no?
Yeah.
Right? And why would that be an absurd thing to think scientifically?
Yeah.
But if you look at the whole world as Christ's footstool, then we are in the temple of God. The heavens and the earth, everything makes the temple of God, and everything is there for a reason.
Yeah.
There is no physical, spiritual kind of. There is a distinction, but they are not to be separated.
You want to preach this Sunday?
I bombed this time.
Okay, so here's a question. So what if there's a Christian family right now, and one of the spouses is homosexual, suffering with homosexual temptations, and they watch this movie, and they're confused, because it teaches them that the loving thing to do, understanding your differences in sexuality, is to let each other go. What would you say?
I'd say that the truth matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Truth matters.
No.
Don't.
No.
Yeah.
There is a sanctity to marriage. There's a covenant, and that covenant is devoid of their feelings.
Yeah. I would say truth matters more than feeling.
Yeah.
Reality matters more than what is perceived by you to be real. I was reading The Lord of the Rings, listening to The Lord of the Rings, the third book. It was interesting how in that book, I forget which sequence where it was, where they talk about how worthless a false hope is. Like hoping for something to happen that is false is no hope. It might have a feeling of hope, but it leads you to sure destruction. I forget the context it was in. I was listening to that and I was just thinking that's so true for how people depend on feelings. So when they look at this, if there's a Christian family suffering with people in that family with homosexual temptations, I think it is to recognize that homosexuality is an evil and it is a distortion of God's plan by the enemy in this world. And the Christian thing to do is to recognize sin as sin, sinful tendencies as sinful tendencies, repent, and trust in God's faithfulness as you take every effort, as you seek counsel with your church, as you seek counsel with rooted, strong Christian believers, and you move away from that kind of lifestyle with all forcefulness, resisting the devil in faith. Because it is more important to cling to truth which is real, which brings hope that does not put us to shame. And you walk down that path and you don't abandon your post just because you feel like it. The movie is terribly wrong. The director is laughably confused. That's not reality as God has created the world. And that's what Christians should do.
There's a lot of charity in saying that he's just confused, perhaps.
Yeah.
Right. This is express evil.
Yeah. All of what we've been talking about, one way or another, is express evil, and evil exists.
And it's maybe the sin of nuance again, because in any other setting in a marriage, if you forget homosexuality, take anything else, the person has anger issues, or the person is abusive, or the person is uncaring or not present, or you take any of those things, there's a different way. You don't think divorce, right? That's not natural. But we nuance this one out and say this is different, right? And say that this has a different solution. This is inherent. This is you, right? You can't do anything about it. It's something else. Which is probably not what the others want to say. They're trying to say that you can be anything. I don't know.
Right. No,
others are not consistent. Truth doesn't matter.
And so I guess by and large all of these topics that we've looked at is all, again, to reiterate, an attack against what God fundamentally has said is reality. And as Christians, we have to be able to go into all of these spheres, whether it's entertainment, news, any and all of it, and perceive it according to what God has declared in His Word to be true, and be bold enough to raise a voice. And so we're not asking people to not see the Kadal movie, but we're asking people to see it and then laugh at it. We're asking people to see it and then don't be silent. See it and then talk about it.
See through it.
Yeah, see through it.
Don't take your children to watch it.
Don't take your children to watch it. Or if you've got adult children, older children, you're taking to watch it. Go home, sit and explain to them why that movie was horrible, why that movie does not have values that hold true. And this is the blindedness of the world, the deception of the world, and this is why the world is as chaotic as it is. And so,
to explain, you need to know.
Yeah.
In the past, I think we had, not we, but like, let's say long in the past, there was the luxury that, most of the voices that you heard very loudly were sensible.
Right.
Tended to be. Because those are the ones that got amplified.
Yeah.
But now in the internet age, anybody can say anything and it can become loud.
Yeah.
And then we have all these agendas working behind the scenes.
Yeah. The Bible talks about this. People choosing for themselves leaders who speak according to what their itching ears want to hear.
So today's parents, families, everyone has a bigger responsibility to
think. Yeah, like we were saying in the last one, talk, want us to think. You think well, in biggest thing for just assume that anything that comes out in public, so that must be right because they know what they can't.
Yeah. It's true because like you shield the children from all these heavy things to think from, and they open Disney and they are watching multiverse and predestination and all those things, time travel and all that, and then you're keeping all these weighty things of the law from
So I guess in the beginning of the year, as TCP Report, this is what we want to do. We want to ask Christian parents and ask Christian families to take very seriously what God has called them to do, and to be faithful in doing it against all odds, and be bold and strong and Christian. And so I guess we'll close with that. We've covered a bulk of it. So thank you for joining me, guys. So this is TCP Report signing off. This is 2024. We have lots of hopes for all that God will do for us in this coming year. You can write to us at thexpurpose@gmail.com. You can check out our website at thecrosspurpose.com. Our YouTube channel. You can check out our podcasts. All of it is available. We hope to do more. Check out our websites. We specifically, if you are in Kerala and you're a Malayalam speaking person, we have articles from Desiring God that we've started translating and putting on the website. Check that out. Write in to us. We love to hear from you. We even take questions and we'd love to respond to them as part of our podcast. But welcome to 2024, and may the Lord be with you. Christ is Lord. You can trust Him and trust Him mightily. In Jesus' name.